So did Cars on the Road hold up a year later? That's what we're here to talk about in this video. So after rewatching the show many times after releasing my video and my review as well on YouTube, I've come to the conclusion that some things did work and some things didn't. So we're gonna go episode through episode and really just talking about what was good and what didn't work, what should have just been better. The show overall, personally, I think it holds up as a 6 out of 10 nowadays. Some people would say different. Some people would argue like, no, it's a 10 out of 10. It's the best Cars thing ever. But be realistic, and coming from a Cars fan who's been here since the beginning of the franchise even started, I have nostalgia towards the original projects. And, seeing Cars on the Road now, it's like, okay, you can't compare the now with the old. It's just uncomparable. One is good and one is mediocre. Now, the core of the franchise, yes, it has its morals and everything, but at the end of the day, what are these movies for? Toys, merchandise, money, Disney. Because Disney at the time, before they bought Pixar, was more feminine, where it was just Disney princesses and animals that could talk. And then, Pixar got purchased by Disney or sold off to Disney, and one of their other franchises besides, Toy Story that were more, I guess, like boy-centric or masculine, quote unquote, was Cars. Because Cars is generally like a boys thing, quote unquote. It's for all ages or all male and female, right? But it's just, I guess, something Pixar saw as like, oh, that's something we can market for boys. Talking cars, toy cars. So you get the first Cars movie. It's a love letter to Route 66. Perfect, beautiful. The second movie, mixed opinions, because some people liked it, some didn't. But compared, the difference between Cars 2 and On the Road is that Cars 2 was over a decade ago, and somehow Cars 2 is getting a lot of appreciation now when a lot of people gave it crap back then. It's a little hypocritical. Now what's happening is when On the Road first came out, everyone loved it because there was hype, because it had been 5 or 6 years since we had last seen a Cars project, Cars 3. And now, a year later, a lot of people are just like, it was whatever. It was kind of boring. It didn't really work. Ivy's annoying. The story should have just ended at 3 or even just 1. So, episode 1 being the Radiator Springs episode. Now, it's all about dinosaurs, and the first problem with that is, well, yes, it's a good concept on paper, dinosaurs in the Cars universe. They do mention it in the second movie, dinosaurs and fossil fuels. So it's not the first time it's mentioned, but they completely explore it through like dream sequences and dinosaur exhibits, and it just immediately seemed like a marketing strategy to sell dinosaur car toys and cars and dinosaurs together, as in play sets or toys. And it worked, because Disney Store markets the hell out of those dinosaurs, Cars toys at like Disney World and Disneyland, or even Mattel at like Target and Walmart and what have you. So it worked. They sell dinosaur cars and dinosaur toys. It was successful. Dinosaur clothing, bathing suits, sunglasses for little kids. It worked. And I think that's mainly my issue with Cars on the Road, is that every episode had a specific gimmick to be able to sell a toy of some sort. Now, Cars 2, yes, it had so many toys, more than all three franchises, than all of the other 3 projects, Cars 1, 3, and On the Road, or even Cars Tunes. But at least the merchandise with Cars 2 was, they were based on the iconic scenes, like the oil rig. They made some of the World Grand Prix tracks. They made the World Grand Prix racers, and so many different variations. Electric, talking with lights and sounds, remote control from Air Hogs, the 155 scale collection, the micro drifters, little plastic ones that had like a little ball in the bottom. You could roll them around and they would like turn and stuff. Disney Store had like their remote control cars, their 143 scale diecast line. They really went all out with the marketing for the second movie, but there it worked, and there wasn't anything gimmicky. The only thing I would say is gimmicky about Cars 2 was maybe, the guns. But even then, like, guns are in the real world, So it's like, I don't know what to say. There's nothing really that unrealistic about Cars 2. If anything, it's a lot more realistic in the sense of like the locations and, you know, the weapons that are used and the gruesome deaths and everything. Cars 1, I mean, it didn't have that problem with the merchandise because, well, it's just cars, you know, like it was just the race car vehicles and like the whole aspect of NASCAR, right? Second movie is just the oil rig and the World Grand Prix and Radiator Springs and like the first 2 scenes of the movie and the last 2. But yeah, the marketing for Cars 2 worked. I mean, clearly, because it made so much money. I think more than the first one. But with On the Road, every episode just had that one specific aspect that just made it marketable for toys. Which brings us to episode 2, which is honestly one of the better ones in my opinion, Lights Out, which is based off of, again, well, there's something marketable there, but it's not as pushed in your face, the Haunted Mansion at Disney, the ride, the Haunted Mansion ride. There's so many references to other old terror movies, also scary movies, but they have barely made any merchandise based off of that episode. Owen Wilson recently starred in a Haunted Mansion movie, and I think there's not really a connection between that On the Road episode and, you know, Owen Wilson in that Haunted Mansion Disney movie. But, you know, a lot of people, especially Disney fans, have put 2 and 2 together. It's like, oh, Owen Wilson, like Cars on the Road, he did this recently with the Lights Out episode, and now look, he's doing the Haunted Mansion adaptation. That's kind of cool, whatever. But other than that, there's not many toys from that episode. I only have like 3 of them in my collection from that episode, maybe even less than that. The third episode is Assault Flats, which honestly is a lot of people's favorites because it sticks to the idea of racing, which is something a lot of people like. Now, I know the movie isn't called Racing, it's called Cars, so you're not restricted to just talking about racing. But generally, the first movie was about racing, you know, and Route 66, so a lot of people associated Cars with that. So when Cars 2 came out, it was like, okay, this isn't racing, but it's like barely shown, you know? It's like only have it in Tokyo and Italy, and then London was just a whole chase scene, and then Radiator Springs, that was like the finale race, whatever. But still, people were like, give Cars 2 a lot of crap because it was spy stuff, and it wasn't what they were used to with, you know, the first movie, or even the Mater's Tall Tales. Which even in Mater's Tall Tales, not everything was about racing there. Maybe just a Tokyo episode, and that was about it. And then Cars 3, they wanted to go back to the roots, and it was completely about racing and training and finding yourself and learning to move on and pass your torch on to the next generation. It was a very closure of a story that, personally, I think that was a great way to end the trilogy for Cars. Because, I mean, McQueen can rest in peace. Like, not dead rest in peace, but like rest like calmly, like, okay, I did my thing, my legacy is up, but it's gonna live on through Cruz Ramirez. You know, I'm gonna train her, coach her, just like Doc did for me. That's beautiful. That's awesome. And he even gets painted in blue to commemorate him. And then On the Road comes out, and it's like all of that was thrown out the window, and now they're going on a road trip, and McQueen's back in his red paint job. I get a road trip, right? They haven't really shown road trips in the Cars universe or in any sort of episode or movie, right? But why McQueen and Mater, you know? Like, I would have preferred maybe like McQueen and Sally, or like older characters to show up, you know? Which is something Pixar promised or stated, I guess, when they were first producing the series and announced it was that old friends were gonna check in along the way in these episodes. And friends with an S at the end, but they only showed Cruz Ramirez, which isn't that even old of a friend. That's a 5-year friend. Compared to like if you would have shown the King with dialogue, Richard Petty voicing the King, or even Mac with dialogue and not just showing up in the background going, you know, like, I would have preferred those cameos to be promised with actual roles. I thought it was going to be, you know, a road trip between all of the town from Radiator Springs, and they were going to go to all these locations, and maybe they should have, honestly, I think they all should have just gone to the wedding. Because, I mean, some would argue, well, McQueen went, but no one else is related to the sister, so, like, why should they go? Okay, well, McQueen's not related to the sister either, and he still showed up. Cruz Ramirez, I guess, makes sense because she's related to Mateo. I mean, if McQueen can go, why can't everyone else? If they're all a family to Mater, you know? Like, this is Mater's family. He's been with them all their lives in Radiator Springs. McQueen's his best friend. Sally's very close to Mater as well. I mean, all of them, Luigi and Guido, Flo, Ramon. Why couldn't they go? And it would have been so much more interesting seeing the interactions between the entire ensemble of like 12 or 13-ish characters going across the country, around the United States, getting to the wedding, and seeing what funny jokes they could have pulled off or good stories. Like, I would have been interested in seeing how Sally would have played in the Lights Out episode. Like, you could have had some like McQueen and Sally scenes, and like Sally trying to comfort McQueen, or Sally learning McQueen's fear of these hotels, or whether it be the clown fear or his insecurities of not being in the spotlight. Like, you could have explored a lot with Sally, which is another problem, is that they try to shove Ivy a lot through merchandise and through these episodes and on the road. Like, how many more, no, not trying to sound of like, or not meaning to offend anyone, but how many more female characters do we need in Disney's propaganda to show that, oh, like, girl power? Like, we already have Sally. Push her instead of having to make a new character for every project. Holly Shiftwell, Cruz Ramirez, and now Ivy. Honestly, I think Holly Shiftwell works better than Cruz and Ivy, because Cruz and Ivy just looks like a copy paste of the character. And believe it or not, they really just, I mean, you could have written Ivy's story arc a little bit better, maybe change the episode order a bit, like Dino Park, Lights Out, Salt Fever, The Legend, Trucks, then maybe get into the circus episode, and then we'll get onto like I don't know, Road Rumblers, and then the wedding. So you would probably have to put B movie before the clown episode, just so that Ivy appears consistently throughout those 3 episodes, and then when she says goodbye and stays in the circus, it feels more rewarding. It's like, oh man, I really like that character. She was really fun. It's a shame she's going away. Hopefully we catch up with her sometime again. If McQueen and Mater come back through the circus in a second season of On the Road, they'll meet with her and be like, hey Ivy, how you been? But no, she's just made for toys. And because funny monster truck. So we got dinosaurs, monster trucks, Haunted Mansion Disney commercial, the Salt Flats, which honestly should have been explored more. That was probably the best thing because it was actual racing. Road Rumblers, so it's the Mad Max parody now. B movie, honestly, that one doesn't have much merchandise either, so that one was actually pretty good. One of my favorites as well. The Legend, same thing, doesn't have much merchandise, but it's hunting, I guess. And then the clown one. Oh my gosh, my problem is with that clown episode, because my top 3 favorite episodes were the Lights Out episode, the Salt Flats, and the B movie. Looking back, my opinions have changed on these episodes, especially on that stupid Showtime clown episode. I get it, a circus, unrealistic physics and whatever, but you're telling me a freaking pity can carry Ivy, and they're flying in the air, all these cars with like goofy faces laughing. Like, compare that single episode to the first Cars movie, and you can tell how childish this franchise has become and how stupid they've talked down to their audience. Because it used to be John Lasseter's love letter to Route 66, and how these cars mean a lot to him, and racing and physics and speed and NASCAR and the history of an old town, to then spies and like the friendship between Lightning and Mater, how friendships are crucial, to the third movie by Brian Fee, where it's like, accept it, you're getting old, it's time for the next generation, it's time to pass on the torch, and you mentor them the same way they taught you. Closure for a character, perfect. And then On the Road, it's just goofy episode after goofy episode after goofy episode. No moral, no connection throughout any of the episodes whatsoever. Like, there's not a continuing message. They attempted in a few. I will say that in the B movie episode, McQueen's insecurity shows up of like, oh, when I'm not in the spotlight, I'm insecure. Like, obviously it's not worded like that, but Mater catches on and is like, McQueen, you're good at everything. Give me a chance. Let the rest of us have a turn at it, a shot at it, And McQueen's like, okay, maybe you're right. Maybe I'm always the one getting everything and being the best of the best. Like, and the whole argument between McQueen and Mater in the Roadrunner episode doesn't make sense either. Because previously, it's like in the B movie episode, what I just said of McQueen and Mater talking about the insecurity McQueen has, and Roadrunner episode, very next episode, they're arguing. Like, flip the episode order of those two, and maybe it would have made more sense. Like, they're arguing on the road trip, they're tired of each other, and then, okay, they apologize in the B movie set, and Mater then understands, oh, McQueen's just insecure. He's scared when he's not in the spotlight. He doesn't know this lesson yet, you know? Which I think is an interesting concept, because how many times have we seen McQueen, besides in Cars 1, show a different side besides, oh, you're my best friend and I'm a good racer? You don't know, because like in the first movie his character was cocky and then he like gets humbled, right? Second movie, he really cares about Mater, but he's also rude to him, right? Like he was rude in the beginning in Tokyo, and he doesn't really want anything to do with him because McQueen's embarrassed of him or whatever. But then towards the end, McQueen learns to accept Mater for who he is. Cool. So in the third movie, it's McQueen like he's old, you know, like, okay, I understand that I'm, you know, old and I need to pass the torch on to the next generation. And then on the road, what's his arc here? He doesn't have the blue paint anymore, so Doc Hudson's out the window. We forgot about him now all of a sudden. And Cruz Ramirez shows up at the very last episode, and apparently that was a last minute add-on. We learned a few things about him, that he's scared of clowns, hotels, not being in the spotlight. But other than that, I mean, it was just him saying, oh, I can't stand Mater for that long. Or, oh, he's taking my spotlight. And he even says it in the first episode of Sally. He's like, oh, that's a lot of Mater, a whole road trip with him. I mean, come on, dude. It's crazy, you know? And then the final episode comes along, the actual wedding, what everyone's looking forward to. And it was a pretty good episode, decent for a season finale. It's just that whole montage with Mater and Mato competing. Again, stupid physics with the cars. Like, I don't have a Mato figure or diecast yet, but just imagine, like, I mean, you just gotta watch the show for yourself. At one point, they're like flying in the air. They're climbing trees. Like, how the hell is a car climbing a tree, bro? Like, the physics and ground level weight to these cars is gone. Like, they just felt so mushy and like stretchy in this series. They didn't feel like this even in Mater's Tall Tales or even the Radiator Springs 500½, which that short was a masterpiece. If anything, I think they should just stick to Cars tunes, and they should have done like a 24-hour Le Mans short. Oh, how I would have loved that. Or if you're gonna make a Cars 4, because people keep asking for it, even after On the Road has shown that they really don't have many ideas anymore, make a 24-hour Le Mans race for Cars 4. Make that the plot, and like Cruz Ramirez is like gonna compete or something against Jackson, and she's still not up to par to McQueen's legacy, so that's like her insecurity or something, and McQueen has to train her. And let's say, I don't know, Cruz Ramirez gets damaged through the race, and since it is, I believe the rule for Le Mans is you have 3 drivers, there it would make sense for McQueen to come in and beat Jackson Storm, prove that he still got it, that he's not that old, and show that lightning always strikes. But yeah, that is essentially it for this video. Sorry for the little rant, but looking back, On the Road is really a 6 out of 10 at best. Don't know what will be the future of the franchise, either a Cars 4 or a Cars on the Road Season 2. And if they do make a Season 2, what are they going to show on the way back to Radiator Springs? Are they going to show, I mean, what can you show? Cowboys? We're going to see Woody in Toy Story, like, what? Oh my goodness.